Hey guys, it's Elena, and today I have my reading wrap up for the month of March 2024. I read 8 books this month, only 2 of which were actual physical books, the rest were audiobooks. This month I did not get through as much as I thought I would, but the first week of the month my husband was on vacation, so he was home with us all week. And then the last week of the month was the kiddos' spring break, so everybody was here all week. So I didn't have a lot of, me time, downtime to do a ton of readings. That's why it's mostly audiobooks. But anyway, let's hop in. I'm gonna tell you about the books I read, my thoughts on them, whether or not I would recommend them, and yeah, let's hop right in. Alright, first book that I finished this month was Jade City by Fonda Lee. I gave this one 4 stars. I could see why so many people really love the Greenbone Saga. I think it's a trilogy. I can understand, but it wasn't like the awesomest book ever, and I wouldn't really recommend it to every single person ever. So essentially it's like an urban fantasy where you've got these like mafia-like, yakuza-like groups, and it's like an Asian inspired world, and they're trying to control the Jade trade. Jade has like magical powers for them. It makes them like really strong and stuff. So you're really like just like taking a look at like this mafia like family and like their rivals, stuff like that. The thing that got me not really loving this book is the character that I was really in love with and I was really interested in kind of drops out of the book halfway through, and so I wasn't really that interested in the second half of the book. I feel like I can understand why a lot of people really like it, but like I felt so connected. I really liked this one character, and then when they just kind of disappeared, I was like, I'm not sure that I really love this that much. It took me quite a while to get through. It took me like 2 weeks to get through it, and it was an audiobook. And usually I can get through audiobooks pretty quickly, but if it takes me a long time to get through something, it's just not something that's keeping my attention super well. So overall, I did really like the idea, the concept of this book, but it just wasn't something that I was totally in love with. So I would recommend if the idea of like an Asian inspired magical mafia situation sounds cool to you, I would recommend checking it out. Maybe you'd love it more than I did, but it's not like a book that I would tell everybody they need to read, right? Next book I finished this month is A Dawn of Onyx by Kate Golden. I was absolutely totally in love with this book. I love this thing. 5 stars, would totally recommend. It's a romantic fantasy, romantasy, whatever you want to call it, but it was awesome. I loved it. Not really spicy, like they never actually like get down to it, right? But the next book is coming out next month, and the author promises some actual spice in the next book. But I loved this. So there's a girl named Arwen, and her home kingdom is like at war with another kingdom. Her brother goes off to fight the war. He ends up coming back after he stole something from the enemies, right? And so they have to flee the town that they live in so that the brother doesn't get caught and in super big trouble and whatnot. And she's actually working as a healer. I really like that. I like that she has her own like profession. She has her own like passion and like dreams. It has magical powers that help her as a healer. And anyway, so they are trying to escape town, and she ends up getting captured by the enemies as well, and she's taken to the enemy kingdom where they're holding her kind of like as like a hostage to be a healer in the enemy kingdom, right? So she ends up meeting one of the guys there and ends up learning a lot more about the enemy kingdom, and ends up falling in love and all that good stuff. There are like a forest around the like fortress that she's staying in that has like creepy monsters and stuff out there, so she can't just like escape because there's creepy monsters and stuff. But yeah, anyway, the guy she meets is not always being 100% truthful with her, and I think that makes a lot of interesting parts in the book. So there's always something more to figure out, something else to learn, little twists and just little information that you're like gathering the whole time. This book I literally read in like 3 days, which is awesome for me as like an actual like physical book. And I got through it so quick because it was just absolutely so like enthralled. I was absolutely enthralled. Like I had to figure out what was going on. I loved the tension between the 2 main characters, and overall I just thought it was really good. I think the author has some beautiful prose sometimes. It's well written. The story was cool. I liked the romance, and it's actually a first novel by her, which you wouldn't even suspect. I've had some bad luck with like debut novels, being not everything you want them to be, but this one was not a disappointment at all. You wouldn't even know that it was like a debut novel from somebody. So anyway, I absolutely could not put it down, and I loved this book, and I would recommend it to anybody who likes romantic fantasy. 5 stars, definitely. Next book was a big disappointment for me. This is Dance of a Burning Sea by E.J. Mellow. This is part of a trilogy. This is book 2 in a trilogy. They're each about a separate sister. There's 3 sisters. I loved the first one that I read, and I thought I would love this one too because it's got like pirates and stuff, but this one was a big letdown for me. So the one girl, Naya, ends up on a pirate ship with her ex-boyfriend Alos, and Alos has kind of taken her hostage, and they have like a I don't know if it's like a blood vow or something between them, where like if one of them dies, the other dies, like they have to help each other out. So they have to learn to like get along and work together, even though they're like mad at each other, they hate each other. There's definitely is an enemies to lovers situation with a big emphasis on the enemies part. So they have to like learn to work together, even though they, you know, have a lot of like resentment and hatefulness toward each other because of like how their relationship left off last time, right? So they're out on the seas, and Alos is the captain of the pirate ship. He's got this whole crew and everything. Naya is kind of just like stuck there, but she ends up having to like work on the crew and whatnot. But they're out searching for an item to help save Alos's like homeland. So that's the general story. You know, they spend a lot of time on the pirate ship and whatnot. I only gave this guy 3 stars because I just felt like there was too much hate between the main characters. There was never any real like tension or anything. You know, it's like a romantic fantasy, and I just didn't feel like there was a lot of romance going on. They just kind of like hate each other a lot, and that kind of drove me a little bit crazy. And it kind of sucks because, like I said, I really liked the first book. I really thought this would be cool because pirate fantasy, that sounded cool to me, but it was just kind of a letdown. I feel like the writer wrote really beautifully. Like the prose is beautiful. The story, like the background information, like all of the names that they give everybody like mean something. There's this whole like section in the back that like tells you like why I named them this, that, or whatever, you know? And I feel like the detail and the world is really cool, but this particular book was just not as good as the first one. I really liked the first one. Oh, and another thing is, okay, so they're pirates and they're out on a pirate ship, and their adventures seem endless, okay? Every time they get to one destination and they think they're gonna find the thing they're looking for, it's not there, and they have to go off to another destination and another destination. It's like every time you think things are starting to wrap up, they just have to keep traveling around all the time, and it just got kind of tiresome. It took me forever to get through this thing. It took like almost 3 weeks to get through this book, so yeah, you can tell I wasn't super duper into it. But anyway, I don't know if I would really recommend this guy. I would recommend the first one, which was called, what was it? A Song of the Forever Rain, something like that. I really liked that one, but this one was not it for me. Okay, the next book I finished was an audiobook, Crown of Crimson by Karina, Halle. And this is a sequel to, what was that one called? River of Shadows, which I super duper loved. So this is the sequel. The 2 main characters, we've got Hannah, who had traveled to the Underworld to save her father in the first book. She ends up having to marry Death, like the god of death. And so we're just kind of like learning more about their relationship, about them trying to get along. She tries to like leave the Underworld, but ends up getting dragged back, and so they have to like rebuild their trust and whatnot because she like tried to leave him, but like they're really still in love or whatever. You know, it's a romantic fantasy, and it's definitely spicy. Like, yeah, plenty of spice. I gave this one a solid 4 stars. I really loved the first one, but I feel like this one was kind of lacking because they're already like more of an established relationship, and you don't feel like a bunch of the tension a lot throughout this book. So Hannah is like learning to fight. She's meeting other entities and stuff in the Underworld. She's learning secrets about her birth and about her father and stuff like that. They're preparing for some kind of uprising, and I do believe there is a next book. I think it's already out. I'll probably end up reading that one eventually, but overall the spice is great. It's definitely spicy. The book is good, but just not as awesome as the first one was. But overall, I mean, if you like you know, spicy, romantic-y stuff, I would recommend it. Okay, the next book I finished was Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson, and I know a lot of people super love Brandon Sanderson, but this is the first book I've ever read from him. It was recommended as a great way to get into his books, but this was only a 3-star read for me, so it's a fantasy book. We have Tress, who falls in love with Charlie. Turns out Charlie is like the son of a duke, I believe. He's going out to find a wife, even though they kind of love each other, you know? He's going out to find a wife. He refuses to marry anybody else and ends up being like abandoned by his dad. And so Tress sets sail on a pirate ship to go find him, okay? So the seas are made of spores. There are some good, interesting aspects to the world, like unique aspects to the world that are intriguing. The beginning I was really into. I liked the dynamic like between Tress and Charlie. I thought it was funny in the beginning. I thought it seemed pretty promising in the beginning, but holy crap, the middle dragged so much. So she's on the pirate ship for the majority of the story, right? And it just felt like not what I thought it was gonna be. Like, it just felt endless. It felt like they were just traveling forever and ever, and I just wasn't really into it. I liked the dynamic between Tress and Charlie, but for the majority of the book, Tress and Charlie are not together, so that was kind of a bummer. Overall, I just didn't get what all the hype was about. I didn't think it was really anything special. Like I said, it was a little bit funny, but holy moly, I feel like it could have been shortened quite a bit. The middle was it just dragged forever, dude. And then in the end, it felt like rushed. Like everything was like all rushed together, where we could have taken some of that boring middle part and like extended what was happening in the end part, if you ask me. But I mean, there were a few surprises in the end. Overall, I just really didn't get the hype. I don't know why everybody said it was so awesome, and I don't know if I would be trying another Brandon Sanderson book based off of this one. So sorry if you love Brandon Sanderson, but this one just wasn't it for me. Okay, next book was The Queen's Resistance by Rebecca Ross. I love Rebecca Ross. This guy was a 4-star read for me. It is the sequel to The Queen's Rising, and I do feel like it was better than The Queen's Rising. The Queen's Rising was Rebecca Ross's debut novel, and you could kind of tell it felt really predictable and just not super awesome. But I did decide to read the second one here, The Queen's Resistance, which was better, definitely better. So Brianna is a girl who was like at a school for girls. She ends up learning a bunch about the passion of knowledge. She goes off and is like adopted by a family, and she finds out that she's gonna help this family like reinstate a queen as the ruler. It's always been queens as rulers, and all of a sudden there's a king ruler, and so they're trying to depose the king and put a girl in charge, put a woman in charge as the queen. So she's trying to help with the resistance to reinstate that queen, right? So I do feel like it was better than the first book. It just had more twists and information and actual like story. It didn't feel as predictable as the first book. I feel like the story itself got a lot better in this second book. It is a love story, but the love story is kind of like a side part of it. And it's really not like the two main characters are like always together. They're not always like thinking about each other. They're just kind of like a bonus, right? But the one thing that I found kind of weird about it is that the guy that she's in love with like was her teacher when she was back at that school. And I feel like their age gap, I don't know exactly what their age gap is, but I feel like it made me feel a little weird. I'm not sure if I really liked the idea of the teacher and the student, and not that it's not spicy, it's not, you know, it's like YA, you know, it's not a big deal, but it did make me kind of uncomfortable at times. I wasn't sure how I felt about the relationship between the two main characters, but overall, they are not, you know, falling all over each other and wanting to be together all the time. They have this like revolution to keep their eye on, right? To this resistance that they have to be a part of, and that's more important than their relationship. Their relationship is just like an extra bonus in the background. So I do kind of like that. You know, I like reading romance, I like reading romantic fantasy, that kind of stuff, but I do sometimes like to see a story where things are a little bit different. It's not all about the couple, it's about the bigger plan and the things that they have to do to save the kingdom or whatever they're doing, right? So I did like it better than the first one. I did give it a 4-star. I would recommend it. If you got through the first book, definitely try the second one because it's much better than the first one. So in the wake of that new documentary all about like Nickelodeon child stars and whatnot, I decided to read I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. It's been a book that I've kind of thought about reading. I guess it's been out for a couple of years now, but I've thought about reading it in the past, and I finally thought I would give it a go after watching the documentary about Nickelodeon stuff, right? So this one I got through in literally like 2 days. It was an audiobook, but I was captivated, and it's read by Jennette McCurdy, so I super enjoyed that. But it's her own little memoir detailing like her abusive relationship with her mother, her childhood, growing up in the Hollywood world, and all that good stuff. So I would definitely recommend it to anybody who, you know, watched iCarly or whatever other shows were on Nickelodeon at the time. If you're interested in hearing her story, I watched iCarly when I was younger, you know, and I just found it to be a very like truthful and honest kind of story that she laid out for us, talking all about all the bad stuff and, you know, some of the good stuff and whatnot, and kind of her struggle with trying to be grateful for having had the financial stability that, you know, being in Hollywood gave her, but also so much trouble, like talking about all of the bad things that it brought on as well, and her relationship with her mom, her family, and it just sounds like she had a tough life, you know, and I'm really glad to see that she says she's been in therapy and she's been like trying to take care of herself and figure out all of her everything, you know, and I'm super glad that it's going a little bit better, right? Because the whole story, you were just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that. So if you at all care about Jennette McCurdy in any way, I would recommend it. If it's something that you've thought about reading, like I said, it only took me like 2 days. I was through it really quickly and I was captivated the whole time. So I did enjoy that one. 5 stars from me. Okay, last book of the month was Inkblood Sister Scribe by Emma Törzs. This one took me a while to get through. I gave it 3.5 stars. So we've got these 2 sisters who are part of like a magical family. They have a library of books written in blood ink and instructions from their father who has passed to take care of the books. And yeah, they come across some obstacles to taking care of the books and keeping everything safe, right? So anyway, this book, the writing was good. I enjoyed the prose. I felt like she was a good writer, but I felt kind of bored like 3/4 of the way in, and there were little bits of twists and surprises, but the way they were all explained in the end I didn't enjoy it. So like in the end, one person is like telling us everything, that all the connections and all the background information and giving you all of the twists, conclusions. Like one person is just telling it all. And I feel like it could have been better wrapped up in the rest of the story, you know, instead of just being like spewed out by one person in the end. I don't know. I read, what was the other book that I was reading? Oh, I'm reading currently another book that feels like that too. It's called The Shadow of the Wind. I'm not enjoying how everything is just being wrapped up, told by one single person in the end. And I don't know, I'm just not a fan. I don't like it. I feel like it could have been explained better throughout the whole story instead of just being like a big giant monologue by one person. So like the weird thing about this one is that I don't feel like there were really any boring parts. Like I didn't feel like it was dragging at all, but like from like 60% to like 75% of the book, like I was like bored with it. I just didn't really know if I wanted to continue reading it. Even when I got to like 75% done, I was still just kind of like not excited to see where this is going, not really captivated or like, you know, need to see what happens. I just didn't really like the book a whole bunch, and it's like a kind of a popular one on like Book Talk, and I just don't get the hype. I didn't think it was really anything special. I'm sorry, but I didn't think it was anything special. So that's it for all of the books that I read this month. Favorite book of the month would have to be A Dawn of Onyx. I loved this guy. Can't wait for the sequel coming out next month. Least favorite book, I think, might be Tress of the Emerald Sea. I'm sorry, but not my favorite. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you are reading lately, and I'll talk to you guys next time.